Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Hooked on Sports here on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and wherever you get your podcasting streaming services. My name is John Flynn, and thank you so very much for listening to today's podcast. We're now in week 7 of the NFL season, and boy, we have some great games that I'm going to be interested in, and you guys should be interested in as well. And it's a great slate of games throughout the day on Sunday and into Monday. We have a game tonight between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll make my pick on that in just a little while, but there are 4 games this week. So all of them feature teams with winning records going head to head against each other. That'll be the focus of the first part of today's podcast. We'll get into the Atlanta Falcons and the San Francisco 49ers. I think that should be a terrific game coming up on Sunday night. I'm very interested in the clash between top NFC contenders with the Detroit Lions and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming up on Monday night. The Colts are 5-1. They have a tough task ahead against Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert, and the Chargers coming up. So we'll get into those 3 games in detail. But I think the best matchup of the British Isle season is coming up on Sunday between the LA Rams and the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I think you have to take a step back with Jacksonville because the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we're a team that I had picked in last place. I had them winning 4 games, and I wasn't a fan of how they handled the draft process and all of that. But one thing I did say on Fantasy Football Fever and Hooked on Sports, was that Jacksonville actually attacked free agency rather intelligently, and I think that's a credit to James Gladstone and Liam Cohen. So bringing over what they learned from the Rams over to Jacksonville in their respective roles. So the Jaguars happen to play the LA Rams coming up on Sunday. Now, I think it's going to be a trickier task for the Rams because Puka Nakua may or may not play. That depending on his injury. If I were to guess, I would say that Puka Nakua will not be playing in the ball game coming up on Sunday against Jacksonville. But what am I to believe in all of this? But I think when we look at this game, I'm really looking at a few things for the Rams. One is, are they going to be able to get Devontae Adams in the ball in areas where he hasn't had to play this year because Puka Nakua has killed the opposition in zone coverage this year, while Devontae Adams has been doing it in man coverage, and Jacksonville's going to show more zone coverage, so it's going to be up to the Rams to get Devontae Adams involved early and often. And dare the Jacksonville defense to stop their best players. So I'm looking for that. I'm also looking for the Rams how they stack up at the line of scrimmage. And the Rams have made a point in this because I think what the Rams learned against the 49ers is that they're really trying to hone in on producing results and stopping the run. And I think the play that's defined the shift in approach for the Rams last couple of years was stopping Derrick Henry on 4th and goal at the with a chance for the Ravens without Lamar Jackson to go up big to go up at halftime against the Rams. That did not happen. The Rams captured momentum. They carried it into the second half, and they wound up winning that game against Baltimore. So obviously they're not playing Baltimore or a banged up Baltimore team, nor is anybody playing Baltimore this week because the Ravens are on their bye week. So I think it's incumbent on the Rams to make sure that Matthew Stafford protects the football. First of all, and he trusts Kyron Williams against Jacksonville's rush defense, and be able to get uh, to be able to get Devontae Adams. And I also think it's going to be important to get Tutu Atwell involved in the game because he's looked good in a good amount of the opportunities that he's had this year. So I'm looking at that. But I think the biggest key to this game is Trevor Lawrence ready to take the next step this year? And I think the Jaguars are doing a great job in making sure that Trevor Lawrence protects the football and he keeps everything simple and to the point. But if Trevor Lawrence is going to justify all the money he's got, he has to start to be able to hit some of the deep ball shots that everyone knows he's capable of hitting, and he's going to need more throws. Like the one he made in the last minute to Brian Thomas Jr. In the Kansas City game, which in my opinion, I mean, the Trevor Lawrence did wind up recovering that botched snap for a touchdown at the end of that Kansas City game. But I thought that throw and catch was the winning play that set everything up after that. And against the Rams, against the Rams, they're gonna have to take some shots down the field because I think with Brian Thomas Jr., I think it was not great that Brian Thomas Jr. hasn't had the season he's had until this Sunday where he wound up going off against Seattle. So I think it's going to be about Trevor Lawrence and his ability to throw down the field. And if he can do that, I think the Jaguars have a good chance to win that game. So we'll see if they will be able to do that. On to the Indianapolis Colts and the Chargers. And I think this is a fascinating game on so many different levels because I think I think we need to take a step back as similar to what I think of Jacksonville and maybe apply the same attitude towards the Indianapolis Colts. And I would and I think and I feel like the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, because all I think the Colts needed was some changes on the coaching staff, going from Gus Bradley to Lou Anarumo. Now all of a sudden the defense is playing well and doing the things that they needed to do to win games for their team. But I think you also have the resurgence of Daniel Jones, who is finally recovered enough from the ACL injury he suffered 2 years ago. The offensive line, the Colts have the best offensive line in football. Jonathan Taylor is a top 5 running back in the league. So a lot of the things that you need to win a lot of games, that's what the Indianapolis Colts possess. So I think you have to look at what the strengths are with the Colts, that then you apply it to what the Chargers do well, and the Chargers are efficient in stopping the run. So I think So I think if the Colts are going to beat the Chargers, I think it's going to be important for Daniel Jones to keep protecting the football like he's been doing so far in his brief tenure in Indy. So I look at that, but I think the question is who are the real LA Chargers? Because we saw a Chargers team that started the season with three divisional games against the Chiefs, the Broncos, the Raiders. They won all those games. But then they got outplayed by the Giants. They got steamrolled by the Commanders. And then in a game where they were up 26-13 in the fourth quarter against Miami, uh, 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 the Dolphins almost won that game. They should have lost that game. The Chargers, and then Herbert hits that Lad McConkey connection for 22 yards, set up the winning field goal at the end. So I think you look at what Justin Herbert. I remember Justin Herbert is still a talented quarterback. Let's make sure so we have that. So I think the key here for this game is as good. I think the Chargers really need to figure out where they want to slow things down and I'm sure Jesse Minter is gonna have a solid game plan out for his defense. But I think that the thing I really want to see is how the Chargers' offensive line is going to hold up here because the feel of this Chargers team has not been the same since Joe Alt left with an injury, and Joe Alt did not practice with the team on Wednesdays, and I have a hard. It's hard for me to believe that he'll be able to get back into action on Sunday. He might be a week away, but we'll have to see what the injury report is there. But I did not pick the Chargers to make the playoffs before the season started, and I think and I had them in that position when they had a healthy Rashawn Slater, but it's been hard for the Chargers to win games without their two starting tackles projected starting tackles at the start of training camp. So that's going to be a game I really want to see how that pans out over there. A suddenly fascinating game is going to be between the Atlanta Falcons and the San Francisco 49ers coming up on Sunday Night Football. And I feel that the Atlanta Falcons. I think this Falcons team has really showed on Monday night what their ceiling is. They are a team that'll consistently get the ball to their first round draft pick playmakers and Bijan Robinson and Drake London and let the talent drive the Falcons to victory and have a quarterback that can that'll be able to get the ball to their playmakers and and then something the Falcons did not have in previous years that they have this year is a pass rush, and they invested two first round picks on edge rushers this year, and now all of a sudden the Falcons are getting to the quarterback and they're disrupting the rhythm and the timing of all that. So the ceiling is there for the Falcons. I think the question that I really want to see is can the Falcons be able to maintain this high level of play on a week to week basis? And so far, the answer under Raheem Morris has been no. And if you look at that the Falcons have a high of highs, and they've had lows of lows as well because they lost 30 zip to the Panthers week 3. A week after they went on the road on Sunday Night Football and defeated the Minnesota Vikings in the fashion that they did with getting after the quarterback. So it's going to be incumbent on on the Atlanta Falcons to be able to come in and handle prosperity the right way and just go out and take care of business. Now for San Francisco. I feel that losing Fred Warner for the season because of his because of his injury, that is a devastating thing to see because I'm of the opinion Fred Warner has been one of the best, if not the best, off-ball linebacker in the National Football League for the better part of 5-6 years now. So he's been worth everything in terms of the value. It just justifies John Lynch taking him with the third round, with their third round pick in 2018. So that's obviously stings. It also stings not to have Nick Bosa around. But could this 49ers offense finally be getting some reinforcements back? And there George Kittle was a limited participant in practice today I should say on Wednesday. So there is a really good shot that he's going to come back. And George Kittle to me makes a seismic difference with his passing attack. Because he is one of the most important weapons that any NFL quarterback can have. And then the question becomes how good will how good will the 49ers be against the different looks and blitzes that the Falcons are going to dial up. So that's going to be something that you're going to have to keep your eye on. And but both Mac Jones and Brock Purdy are good with getting the ball out of their hands and getting the football to the receivers in a quick enough pace. So if the 49ers are going to win, we really want to see if the Falcons the pass rush can continue what they're capable of doing, and carry it over on a short week against the 49ers. It is a tall task, I think, for the Falcons having to go on the road on a short week in prime time, having played prime time the week before. But it is going to be 5 o'clock in the Pacific time zone, so the sun should be up for the first half of that game. Before the sun sets, to nighttime for the second half of that ball game. So we'll see how the Falcons will be able to respond to that. And then the last game that's really that's really on my mind is the game between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Detroit Lions. Now the Lions are coming in. They just got their butts kicked. Because Brian Branch said that he inexplicably punched Juju Smith-Schuster after the game on Sunday night, and he wound up getting suspended. And the NFL announced yesterday that that the suspension had been upheld after appeal, so he will miss out on a very big game in the NFC against Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's something something of note here, especially for Buccaneers offense. So that so far the season has thrived on big plays, but the problem for the Bucs this week is they're going to be without their three best wide receivers. No Mike Evans, no Chris Godwin, and no Emeka Egbuka. Egbuka got hurt in the week 6 game against the 49ers. So you're probably throwing out Cameron Johnson, Sterling Shepard, Tez Johnson, who caught a touchdown last week. So we want to see if the Buccaneers can try and match a Detroit secondary that's banged up due to injury. But I think there are two individual matchups that I really want to see and how it transpires. I'm looking at Aiden Hutchinson, who I believe is the number one edge rusher in football according to Pro Football Focus. Against right tackle Tristan Wirfs, and both are superior players at their positions, and I think it's going to be an outstanding battle between those two to try and get to the quarterback. So I really want to see if they'll be able to, if Aiden Hutchinson's going to be able to break through against Tristan Wirfs and get to the quarterback. And then I also want to see what Jared Goff does against all the different blitz packages that Todd Bowles is going to dial up. And Jared Goff, I think the Ravens tried it. The Cleveland Browns tried it, and I know the Chicago Bears tried it. But Jared Goff is continuing to play at a really high level when it comes to countering the blitz. So I think that's going to be one advantage that the that the Lions have based upon the results of the first 6 weeks of the season. So I'm gonna let's get into the picks for week 7 in the NFL. I went 10-5 last week straight up. I'm now 59-33-1 straight up. And then against the spread, I went 9-6, my best week of the season. So I'm 43-50 overall. And as you can see right here to the right of your screen if you're watching this on YouTube, so these are the spreads I'm gonna be I'm gonna be tasked against for this week, and these spreads are provided by FanDuel for this. So thank you for giving us that. So we're going to start with the game on Thursday night between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Steelers are favored by 5.5 points here. And I think this is one of the better bets of the week. I really like the Steelers winning this game. There's still not a question of whether Trey Hendrickson's going to play, but I think but I think the keys here are going to be running the football against this woeful Bengals run defense and Aaron Rodgers protecting the football. And as long as they can do those, and Pittsburgh holds up and forcing Cincinnati to rely on short to intermediate passing to get them in the game. I think the Steelers are going to win. I think they're going to cover here, but I have them winning by a score of 23-16 in the game coming up tonight. Now on to the action on Sunday. We got the Jacksonville Jaguars and the LA Rams in London. The Rams are favored by 3 points against Jacksonville, and I think the difference to me in this game, I think is going to be the coaching advantage. Now, Sean McVay is superb, and I think McVay is up there with Shanahan in terms of maximizing talent, overcoming injuries. So I think obviously in addition to a big game for Devontae Adams, I think this is going to be a big game for Connor Williams and Tutu Atwell as well. It's gonna be a tough one because I think it's gonna be a fun, competitive game. But I have the Rams hanging on here. I have them winning by a score of 20-14 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now let's go on to the games on Sunday. We got the Chicago Bears. They are 5.5-point favorites at home, taking on the New Orleans Saints. Now, this kind of has a trap game type of feel for the Bears because they're coming off an excellent victory against Washington, but where they came back and won. So, but the thing about this was, if the Commanders did not lose the turnover battle the way they did against Chicago, the Commanders would have won that game. So I think you have to look at what the Saints are trying to do, and look, if we protect the football, we have a chance in this game. And I don't believe the Bears are going to win a turnover battle 3-zip again like they did last week. Maybe they can because of how the Bears defense has improved week to week throughout the season. But in this thing, I'm going to take the Bears to win, but I've got the Commanders. I got the Commanders with the points here. Give me Chicago to win 21-18 over Washington. Now we go to the Cleveland Browns. They are 2.5 point favorites in a football game this year. Why? Because they're taking on the Miami Dolphins, and good golly! I mean, could this be a game who decides who's going to keep their job after this week? Because both of these teams are 1-5. These are two of the three worst teams in the NFL. Two of the 3 or 4 worst teams in the NFL, depending on how you also rank the Jets and the Titans in that exercise. But I'm going to pick the Cleveland Browns because they have an actual defense, and I think the game against the Steelers last week, the final score did not indicate how competitive I thought that game was. So give me the Browns to win a game against the Dolphins by a score of 20-13, and I could see Mike McDaniel getting fired if they lose on Sunday in Cleveland against Dylan Gabriel and the Cleveland Browns. This next game, Raiders Chiefs, that was one of the trickier games for me to pick against the spread this week. So the Kansas City is favored by 11.5 points at home against the Raiders. So I remember this is the game where the Chiefs are going to be getting Rashee Rice back from the 6-game suspension. So that's obviously a huge boost to what the Chiefs eventually want to accomplish. But I feel like this is a division in a divisional game. I think it's going to be one of intense play throughout. And look, I know the Raiders play the Titans, but I think their defense is a little bit better than I thought that they were going to be, and I think Trey Tucker is going to have the opportunity to put up some yardage against the Chiefs in the receiving game. So I'm going to pick the Chiefs to win. Don't get me wrong, the Chiefs are the better team, but I'm going to grab the 11.5 points with the Vegas Raiders. I have them winning by a score of 26-16 coming up on Sunday. This is going to be a fun game. We got the Philadelphia Eagles. They're 1.5 point favorites on the road, taking on the Minnesota Vikings, a team that's coming off their bye week. And look, I'm going to pick the Minnesota Vikings to win this game outright. I believe so that you look at the head coaching advantage that thing is now clear in this game based upon how Nick Sirianni has been without Kellen Moore or Shane Steichen on his coaching staff. And I think the defense with Brian Flores, I even though the run defense isn't as good as their pass defense, so I can see how Saquon Barkley has a solid game against this bunch. I just think that Brian Flores against Jalen Hurts, the way he's been playing the last 2 weeks, I don't think is a good matchup for the Philadelphia Eagles. So yeah, I'm gonna pick the Vikings to hand the defending champions their third straight loss. I got the Vikings winning this game 28-25 over the Philadelphia Eagles. The Carolina Panthers are 1.5 point favorites on the road against the Jets of the Meadowlands. And look, it's it was tough for me to pick Carolina to win on the road because they're 3-0 at home in Charlotte, and they're 0-3 on the road, and the Panthers are a road team. But I just I got the impression the last couple of weeks that the Jets, that the players and the coaches, that they have completely quit on their season, and the Panthers are again, the Panthers were a team that I said was going to be better than people anticipated. I didn't think they were going to be this better. But yeah, the Panthers are looking to improve. They're making strides every week. Ted McMillan had his first 2 touchdowns as a pro last week against Dallas, and against the Jets defense that's just hammered with injuries. And the Jets offense that doesn't have Garrett Wilson, so that really limits what Justin Fields can do in the passing attack. So I think those things just add up to a Carolina victory. That is my best bet of the week. I have the Panthers winning by a score of 28-17 over the Jets. This was another tricky game for me to pick. The New England Patriots are 7-point favorites on the road in Tennessee, taking on the Titans. And for the Titans, their first game since they fired Brian Callahan, and it's going to be um Mike McCoy taking his place as the interim head coach with an opportunity to be the full time head coach. But I think it's going to be close because I usually see that a first game after the team in their first game after firing their coach comes out a little bit stronger. So I think you have that, but I think the Patriots are going to win. I think Mike Vrabel is going to get revenge for how the Titans handled the downfall of 2022 and 2023 following the AJ Brown trade. So I'm going to take the Patriots to win 24-20, but I'm going to grab the points here with the Tennessee Titans. The Denver Broncos, they are favored by 7 points, taking on the New York Football Giants, and I think this is gonna be a low scoring, fun, defensive, physical type of football game. Well, which if you're someone who loves defense, I think a game like this is one for you, because I think because Bo Nix looked bad. In the Jet game, if the Broncos would have lost to any other team on Sunday if it wasn't for the Jets. So I think and I think Bo Nix has not looked as good as he did last year, and that's the reason why I did not pick the Broncos to win the division at the start of the season. So you have that. So an opportunity for the Giants to potentially wreak havoc on this game with Brian Burns and Abdul Carter and Kayvon Thibodeau getting to the quarterback here, and making things close. But with the prosperity of the Thursday night victory over Philadelphia a week ago, I do think the Giants offense is going to take a step back on Sunday, because Jackson Dart is going to be seeing arguably the best defense he's going to see in his rookie season. When you look at how it's constructed, when you look at the pass rush, led by Nick Bonino, who leads the league with 8 sacks. Secondary with Patrick Surtain going to be probably covering Wan'Dale Robinson with Malik Neighbors out. So, but I just think if they're not going to score 34 points and gain 366 yards of offense and have 4 rushing touchdowns against this Broncos defense, I just don't think that's going to happen there. But credit Brian Dable for scheming this Giants team. Similar to what it was in 2022 when they had Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley as QB running back. But it's gonna be a fun, low scoring game. I've got the Broncos though winning by a score of 19-14, so I'm going to grab the 7 points with the New York Giants. The LA Chargers, 1.5 point favorites at home, taking on the Indianapolis Colts, and and this is a game I discussed in length at the start of today's podcast, and I'm going to take the Indianapolis Colts to win. I think they're the best team in the AFC right now. I think considering the line, the upgrades in coaching, Shane Steichen, Daniel Jones, Jonathan Taylor, I just think that's going to be too much for the depleted Chargers roster to handle. And the Chargers, frankly, should have lost last week the way they played in the fourth quarter, but they won. A win is a win. But give me the Colts to win this game by a score I have them at 24-21. I think it's going to be a fun game at SoFi on Sunday afternoon. The Green Bay Packers, they are on the road favored by 6.5 points, taking on the Arizona Cardinals. And I'm going to sound the alarm on this one. Upset special. Give me the Arizona Cardinals to win this football game outright. Because I mean, if you look at the Cardinals and how they've played through the vast majority of their season. The 4 games that they've lost have come the 4 game losing streak. The combined margin of defeat has been 9 points, which what I saw was the smallest margin of defeat in a 4 game losing streak in NFL history. So so I think with that being said, I think the Cardinals back at home is a big deal. And I think the Packers that they have not played they have not passed the eye test since the first 2 weeks of the season, where they throttled both Detroit and Washington, but they lost to the Browns. That they should have lost to Dallas had an awful clock management. And yeah, they beat the Bengals, but they failed to cover a 14.5 point spread last week. So, and the Cardinals have talent on that defense, and I think Jacoby Brissett gives them the best chance to win ball games going forward. So yeah, I'm gonna pick an upset special here and pick the Cardinals to win this game by a score of 27-23 over the Packers. Now on to Washington and Dallas. So this is gonna be a fun game because the Fox is sending their top crew to that game. Kevin Burkhardt, Tom Brady, Aaron Andrews, Tom Rinaldi will be calling that game for Fox. The Commanders are 1.5 point favorites on the road in Dallas against the Cowboys. And look, I believe Washington is going to bounce back in this game. Yeah, I was not as high on Washington as other people were, but I did not have Washington making the playoffs. But I think in this game, getting Terry McLaurin, I believe he is going to be coming back on Sunday. But I think having scary Terry McLaurin back is going to be a monster deal for Jaden Daniels, and I think he's going to help. He's going to help clean up all the mental mistakes the Commanders made in the loss to Chicago. A game I thought, in theory, Washington outplayed Chicago for a good chunk of that game, especially when it came to the second half. In the third quarter, but that awful toss to Bill Krause-Merritt, I thought had something to do with the weather and the wet conditions. So but no need to worry about that in Dallas. Give me Washington to win the game 31-27 over the Dallas Cowboys. The San Francisco 49ers on Sunday Night Football. They were at 2.5 points at this time yesterday. That spread is now just a game, 1.5 points coming up on Sunday, as they take on the Atlanta Falcons. But as I mentioned, that there are advantages that both teams have in this game. But I believe the 49ers have the major coaching advantage in this game. And I think you have some doubts on this one because the 49ers are without their 2 best defensive players who are both all pros. But give me the team with a better head coach and a better quarterback. Give me Kyle Shanahan and either Brock Purdy or Mac Jones and the San Francisco 49ers to win this game. It's going to be a fun one. I'm going to go 24-20. Give me the Niners over the Falcons on Sunday Night Football. Now on to the Monday night doubleheader. It's the Detroit Lions favored by 5.5 points. 7 p.m. Eastern start on Monday on ESPN and ABC. They'll be taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But as good as Baker Mayfield has been, and there's a strong argument to be made, given the circumstances, that Baker Mayfield should be the league MVP through the first 6 weeks of the season. I just do not want to face the Lions coming off a loss, and the way they lost that game, and I think the Lions are going to come back motivated to show and prove to their coaches that they're not going to go down without a fight. So I think the Lions are going to bounce back in this game. I think they're going to win. I think they're going to cover. I have them winning by a score of 28-20 over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then the finale of Week 7, it will be a 10 p.m. Eastern start on Monday night. We got the Seattle Seahawks favored by 3.5 points, taking on the Houston Texans. So this is a game where I believe Seattle's going to win. I think they're the better, well-rounded team, as you saw on Sunday last week against Jacksonville. But I'm going to guard against the game being decided by a field goal because I think the Texans coming off a bye week, they have a strong defense. I think it's going to keep them in this ball game. So I'm going to grab the points with the Texans, but pick the Seahawks to win by a score of 20-17. Coming up on Sunday on Monday night, late Monday night game in Seattle. I think it should be a fun one up at the Great Northwest. So that'll do it for this edition of Hooked on Sports. Thank you so very much for listening to the podcast, and until then, be safe, everybody, and so long. I'll be back here on the podcast coming up next week. So long, everybody.